Welcome to Buckets, Action Network's NBA betting podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Sean Little, joined as always by Joe Delera. This is our Thursday edition of Bets Bets. We have 3 games on the NBA slate this evening. Hey, listen, man, if you already are not following JD Joe Delera on Twitter and in the Action Network app, go do so ASAP. I tailed him yesterday. Trey Murphy over 3.5 triples at plus 150. He put it out for everyone to go nibble on. I tailed it, cashed in the third quarter. Easy. Joe, how you doing, baby?
Dude, we're doing good. It's been a busy day at the desk, but we're still ready. We're gonna be ripping through this little Thursday slate, so pretty excited, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. For those who are listening only, JD is looking clean in the suit, looking very proper. All business right here on Buckets to give you these Thursday picks. All right, let's jump into it. I'm going to give my first bet. I only have one, then Jay, go ahead and give yours. I'm looking at the Nets Blazers over 221 minus 110.
Dude, that's music to my ears because I'm on the Nets, specifically team total over 108.5 in that same game. So I feel like we're going to be really playing off each other here. I guess we can talk about the other games, but we both really keyed in on this one.
Yeah, let's break down this Nets Blazers, and then we'll jump into the other 2 games that were interesting. We were looking at them, but we settled on this Nets Blazers game, a very interesting spot. We saw it all. Let me get into it. We all saw it Tuesday night. The Nets lose to the Kings by 100. It felt like that. That's how bad it got in Sacramento. Completely got ran off the floor, giving up 153 points. The Nets let the Kings shoot 60% from the floor. It was laughable. It was a big time. It was a very memorable performance from a team that we were talking about just getting back on track. Kyrie's not there. They look better. Vaughn's got them playing better defense. He was giving up 94 points a game going into that big time blowout in Sacramento. This is what I have to say about that. I think there's no denying that Jacques Vaughn has them playing better defense, but I think overall, the core of this team is a poor defensive basketball team. I know Jacques came in and gave them a little fire on the defensive end, but I think overall, they're just a bad defensive team. Let's talk about the Nets and how did we get to the Kings scoring 153 at home the other night? The Nets flat out got cooked.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. They flat out got ran off the floor, specifically by the shooters and the guards of the Sacramento Kings. Listen to this. Terrence Davis, 12 of 16 from the floor, 7 of 10 from 3. He had 31 in 26 minutes. That's what you would call efficient. Then let's go to Kevin Huerter. 7 of 10, 5 of 7 from 3 for 19. Malik Monk, 6 of 9 from the floor. Barnes was 5 of 8. That's where it gets spooky for me, and that's why I was looking at the over in this spot. That's why I am looking at the over 221 in this spot, because all those guys I just named can't touch the Blazers' big 3 of Dame, Simons, and Grant. Period, point blank. They're all better guys than the guys I just named for the Kings. I know the Blazers have also been playing better on D, but they've gone over. The total has gone over this 221 number in 4 of 6 games when they're playing at home in Portland. I think the Nets just got embarrassed. Kevin Durant and the rest of the gang beyond embarrassed. Everyone's laughing at him. We know what they've been going through throughout the year. We know Kyrie is not going to play. That has been confirmed. They have to bounce back in this spot. Period, point blank. That's why I'm backing the overall total here, because I think it's going to be a competitive game. We know Portland has been solid. They've been solid all year. I wasn't a believer. I'm starting to become one in a real way. They played really well, but the Nets have to bounce back. This is going to be a competitive game. I think 221 is too low. I see this game being like 115, 110, 117, 112, something around that. That's why I'm looking at over 221.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. Like, and even like if we look at the pace of these two teams, even though they generally play like a little bit on the slower end, like they're both in the bottom third of the league, when we really like are watching these games, they just have very efficient scoring. And honestly, like if you really look at the Nets, they've been like, I know that they've gotten embarrassed a couple times, but they seem to have like a more, I don't know if like cohesive offense is the way to like really say it, but like
The angle, yeah.
Without Kyrie on the floor, like you don't have the ball like sticking, in my opinion, like as much, because you don't have two guys that are super like ISO heavy, or like really trying to shoot. Like you don't have two guys like trying to handle the ball. Like Durant just can do a little bit of everything, honestly. And I think it's a little bit underrated, like what he's doing without Kyrie Irving. I mean, he has been averaging in the 7 games this season without Kyrie 27.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 6.4 assists. And he's doing that on 52% shooting. And like we know the shots he's taking, they're not necessarily always at the rim. Like he's ripping mid range, he's hitting a couple threes here and there, but he is just slicing and dicing the defense. So the thing that I like about this in particular is that without Kyrie, they've played 7 games. And in those games, they're actually 4-3. And like, this game is giving me like some trouble because I wanted to back one of these, like I obviously wanted to back one of these teams, but the game feels like it could be close, like you said, because both teams' defenses, it's interesting because over the last couple weeks, if we look at their location expected field goal percentage, the Blazers are worse. The Blazers are 29th in expected field goal percentage, effective field goal percentage allowed at 55.3%, whereas Brooklyn is 16th with 54.1. But if we look at what their actual outputs are, they're significantly lower. Like the Brooklyn has the second best and Portland has the 11th best. So I think when you get to the opportunity to then play like these two offenses that have been awesome over the past couple of weeks, that's a good way to look at this for maybe some regression here. Because if we look over the last couple of weeks, Brooklyn is actually the 5th team in terms of point differential at plus 6.1 points per 100 possessions. And Portland is actually all the way down at 20th, minus 0.4. So it's kind of those things, like you said, Portland's offense is incredible. So that's why I didn't want to go with a side per se, even though like I like the Nets' chances here. And I was like, I think that the Nets will still score because like they just did even against the Kings when they got their doors blown off, but they still scored. So Brooklyn's defense has been better, like you mentioned, over the past couple of weeks. But I do think that Brooklyn goes over this number. And one of the things that I noticed was in terms of the shot profile that's being allowed, the Blazers are really allowing, they're allowing a good amount of threes. And not only are they allowing those threes, but they're also allowing opponents to shoot 35.9% from three. So I might be looking for some, maybe some Joe Harris stuff, maybe some Seth Curry stuff, as a way to, like, since I'm already on the over, as a way to kind of bolster that Nets offense, as they maybe get a little bit more of their feet under them here. So that's kind of what I was thinking and why I like this game to go over, at least for the Nets side anyway.
Yeah, Seth should be able to get more shots than 6 than he did in the last game. Joe Harris was 1 of 7. He just had a poor shooting type of game. I think this is more of it comes to, I think the Portland Trail Blazers guards can put up points on the Nets. And I think that the Nets are going to come out and have to compete in this game. And it's going to be, I just see it being a tighter game, which pushes it over the overall total. I think 221 is just overall too short of a number coming off of an embarrassing spot, and Portland playing as well as they have. They can explode at any moment on the offensive end. I really like the spot. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's look at the rest of the slate because we got to talk about, we only got 3 games to break down, 3 games to choose from. We both landed on Nets, Blazers. Let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. We just talked about how they ran the Nets off the floor. Now they're cozy at home, giving up 7 points to the Spurs. What are your thoughts on the Kings overall? They seem to be a little deeper than we realized. They're balanced. Sabonis truly doesn't, what's shocking to me is Sabonis truly doesn't care about scoring the basketball.
No, not at all.
And he's not interested in scoring in the slightest bit.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he'll take a shot when he needs to, or when he's in a spot where it's, he went 6 for 6 against the Nets. That's
he's just like, I'm not going to miss.
Yeah, he had 17 points on 6 of 6 from the floor. So he's taking only good looks. He's not forcing anything on the offensive end. How do you feel about the Kings? Their head honcho, who was supposed to come over and put up a ton of points, former All-Star, is seems like he's cool delegating to the young gunners.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's really interesting. Like the team is very exciting, and they're actual output on the season has been like, it's been pretty significant. I mean, they are 11th in adjusted net with the number 2 offense in the league in terms of adjusted offensive rating. So like that's fucking surprising.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I think it's like you said, like it's a lot of being unselfish. And they really went out and they got a lot of guys that can shoot threes, which was important because De'Aaron Fox is not, he's been making a couple more. He's been like making like 2 a game. So that's been a little sneaky there in terms of his prop value, but he's not like a traditional 3-point shooter. But, like when you got like Ronald Threesley over there making a bunch of threes, like it really helps stretch the floor. And like, that's what Fox needs for his drives. So I think that the 2-man game they got going on with Sabonis is like, it's excellent. And in this game, though, I'm a little interested to see what happens here because the Spurs just seem to be like that team that's like consistently underrated. But like when we look, or at least in terms of the against the spread market, like if we look at their actual ratings, like they're really not good. And they have a 5-game week this week. So this is the 3rd game out of 5 that they're going to be playing. Like it's a pretty tough schedule spot, in my opinion, for San Antonio.
Yeah, they've lost 7 of 8, and then the W they did get was against the Bucks, where they were resting some guys.
Yeah.
They started the year off pretty hot. It seems like that's coming to an end here. It's going to be interesting to see how the Kings react being a 7-point favorite. Are they going to go out and bury these guys like they probably should, or are Keldon Johnson and those boys going to show up, go? Because if you watch the Blazers game last night, it was close.
Yeah,
through a vast majority of it, they competed quite a bit in that game, and now you're telling me they're going to go to Sacramento. Not a long flight, not a lot of travel. They'll be able to get over there pretty easy. And now the Kings all of a sudden are laying 7, and my gut tells me I'm not sure they're good enough to give up 7.5 to anybody in the NBA. So it's an interesting spot.
Yeah, like I agree with you there, and it's kind of one of those things. It's like you don't want to be buying high and buying like, or and selling low on these teams. Like that's kind of the way that the spread looks to me. And I think based on some of the opens on like depending on the market, it seemed like there's a little bit of sharp action already because I think it opened around like 7.5, and I think we're already seeing this bet down to 7. I think you're 100% right. Like it's one thing when you're a team and you're like you got to play up and you're like, we're the underdogs, like we are not expected to do anything, we're playing with some house money here, and then you go and blow the doors off teams and like you're surprising teams. When you're the team that like is supposed to be the big dog, I think it's a little bit tougher because like that's not really a role that the Kings have had to play really just like ever. They really haven't had to do that. They're not good.
I was waiting to see what time frame you were gonna say, and I was gonna be like, that's probably short, but yeah, ever sounds a lot more reasonable for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what they look like. Laying 7 now at home. It is a good spot though. Like we said, the Spurs are on a road trip. They've lost 7 of 8. They competed last night against the Trailblazers, but we'll see how the Kings play now being a 7-point favorite. All right, let's talk about the last game on the slate. Pistons, Clippers. Pistons are potentially the worst team in the NBA. They're competing with the Houston Rockets. That's whoever you want to ask, you can create your own opinion on who's worse. But they're definitely one of the worst teams in the NBA, no question. Tons of talent, but they are at the bottom of the barrel right now. And then the Clippers are an interesting team, right? Because they're deep, but they have a really hard time scoring. A lot of the time, a lot of half-court possessions just don't look very good at all. They have a hard time putting the ball in the basket. Then they go down a bunch, 20 plus to Dallas the other night. And then they come right back and get back in the game and almost win it. They sit here at a 9.5 point favorite, depending on where you're looking right now. How do you feel about this game? Pistons are coming off a couple of days of rest as well, I believe. What do you think? How do you feel about this game?
Dude, I was honestly like, I was close to giving out Pistons plus 9.5 for this.
Yeah, Pistons haven't played since Monday when they had a close loss at home to the Raptors.
So my concerns are a couple things, and number one, like that game, even that they lost to the Raptors. Number one, they didn't have Cade Cunningham, and Cade Cunningham's not going to be playing here tonight
Yep,
either. But in that game against the Raptors, like the Raptors were missing a bunch of guys too. Like they basically were only playing like Scotty Barnes, and Delano Banton just went bonkers. So like it's just like I don't. It's really hard for me to back the Pistons in this spot because like the Clippers have also been bad. So it's not like I'm saying like, all right, like I'm gonna buy like a bad team against, against somebody else. But I think the concerning thing about LA is that when we look at this, like last year they were a top what 5 3-point shooting team in the league in terms of 3-point percentage. This year they've been like actually atrocious shooting the basketball. I think in terms of 3-point percentage, they are they're shooting almost like 40% as a team, but they're not getting a lot of looks. Like they're only shooting them at the 20th frequency in the league. And that's I don't know that like what that is that's making that happen, but it's a problem stylistically. And it's like you said, like they are deep, but they have like a lot of redundant talent. And
yeah,
that's great, in terms of like your depth, you can replace guys, but whatever. But like I think it's hard because they just really fly by who's got the hot hand. And I think it's hard for these guys to get into a real rhythm. And, I think it's a little disheartening to not have Kawhi Leonard out there,
for
but,
sure. But
it's,
if you watch a team like Utah, for example,
yeah,
they have a bunch of guys. They're just a bunch of guys thrown together. But man, do they move the rock really well.
yeah.
The ball moves so well. And it's the exact opposite with the Clippers. Ball sticks. Morris will get it and hold it.
Oh,
Paul
I
will
know
get
that
it.
game.
Yeah, Paul will get it and hold it. And of course, Reggie Jackson will get it and hold it. And then what's interesting is you kind of have a guy that in Norm Powell that wants to play offense the right way. You could see it like on a possession to possession thing, but Norm Powell's also a basket. So he also wants to get his shots up. So it's one
Yeah.
of those things where when he gets it, he's like, man, no one's running on offense anyway. I'm just going to go ahead and get my shots up as well. So
Yeah.
overall, the offense is super stagnant. And it's an interesting spot, though, because, hey, you never know if, for example, I'm watching that Mavs game, and I think they have no chance to come back in the game whatsoever. They're
No.
struggling every single possession to score the basketball. The next thing you know, they're back in the game. They
Yeah.
could parlay that into the game tonight here against the Pistons, 9.5. It's all you know what's funny about numbers like 9.5? They look like a lot, and then the game starts, and you're like, they're gonna run these dudes off the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Like the other night when Golden State was playing the Kings. It was
Yes.
like, oh yeah, this is a 25-point win.
It's going to be a blowout. It's
Yeah,
going
this
to
is
be
going to be a
fun.
blowout. It's like, man, nine and a half is a lot, and it's like the second quarter, and you're on your couch, and you're like, 9.5 was too little for sure.
Yeah, it's like the
So
difference between like 3.5 and like 4.5 is like so much more significant than the difference between like nine
right,
and a half and 15.
yeah,
Like,
exactly, 100%, especially in the NBA. So it's an interesting slate because I want to see how the Kings come out and bounce back after rolling out the Nets. You know what's funny about that spot too? Before we get out of here, is mentally that's still the Nets, and that's still a big win for the Kings. Like
yeah,
they don't beat teams like the Nets typically, right? They have a good feeling that they got something good going. Like I said, I'm very impressed with Sabonis giving up the rock and not worrying about scoring on offense. So that's an interesting game against the Spurs, -7, 7.5, depending on where you're looking. And then can the Clippers score enough? They should bury teams like Detroit, but they've shown time and time again, right? That total sits at
yeah,
216, right? So
yeah. I mean,
the
speaking,
Pistons are going to struggle to score 100 points. That's what they're saying.
yeah, I mean, what's crazy? I think that total in the Spurs uh Kings game is crazy. It's
237.5. Yeah.
yeah, because I was even saying like, like when you get a big spread like that, sometimes I don't think that the dog is necessarily gonna like sometimes I think like maybe they could cover, but like I don't know. I was looking at like the Spurs team total, it's like 115 and a half. That's just a lot of points. Like, even though both these teams play fast, it just seems like a tall ask for at least for San Antonio in
For the
that
Spurs,
spot.
yeah, coming off to close out a road trip as well. So yeah, we'll see. But to recap for me and JD, Joe Delera, I am on over 221 in Portland versus the Brooklyn Nets tonight. And Joe is looking at the team total over 118 for the net or
108,
108 for the
108 and a half.
Nets.
Yeah,
108
108
and
and
a
a half.
half for the Nets. So those are our best bets for Thursday night. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter. I am Sean Little at Chicago Flow. What's your Twitter, Joe D?
It's at Joe Delera. And then if you want to follow my podcast that I put out on Wednesdays, it's at Cash That Podcast.
Yeah,
so
man.
gotta get the listens in.
Gotta get the plug in. Also, make sure you check out Joe's prop forecast. Comes out every Monday or Tuesday?
Every Monday. Yeah,
every Monday. Make sure you check it out. It's an absolute great read. Joe puts a lot of work into it. Make sure you check that out. There's definitely some good info there for you to check out for the week upcoming for your props. That's going to do it for us. Buckets, Action Network's NBA betting podcast, Thursday edition. Appreciate our guys over at FanDuel. We'll see you guys next time.